This week on Squats and Margaritas, it's the food babe herself, Vani Hari. She's a revolutionary food activist, a New York Times bestselling author, co-founder of the organic food brand True Vani, and was named one of the most influential people on the internet by Time magazine. Vani started foodbabe.com to spread information about what is really in the American food supply. She teaches people how to make the right purchasing decisions at the grocery store, how to live an organic lifestyle, and how to travel healthfully around the world. I need her in my life. I know macros. I don't look at the ingredients, and I'm going to have to come clean and tell her. She has a new book coming out, Food Babe Family, where she's got recipes and just tips and tricks for raising kids who eat healthy foods. I have two. They don't do that. Please do me a favor and hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode. And please leave me a review for Squats and Margaritas on Apple Podcasts. Here is my episode with the food babe, Vani Hari.
How are you, Erin?
I'm so good. You're here. I got the food babe. I'm doing great.
Oh,
I need you. I need you in my life. I feel like moms are usually the ones buying the groceries, making the decisions at restaurants. And you look at what's quick. You look at, what's cheaper, what's BOGO, like the BOGO strawberries. When I walk in, that's what gets my attention. And I need to be better about looking at ingredients. I want you to know that this is not going to be a conversation like I've listened to on other podcasts where you're both very well-versed in ingredients and what to be looking out for. I know macros. I know like nutrition. I don't know ingredients. I don't look at ingredients, and I need to be better. I want to start, before we get into all of that, with your story. And you would think, like, looking at you now, you've always been this like healthfully conscious woman, but you were not always that way. And that came as a result of living an American lifestyle and eating an American diet.
yeah, absolutely. So I grew up with two immigrant Indian parents. And when they came here to the United States, my dad had an arranged marriage to my mom. And he said, if you're going to live in America with me, we got to eat like Americans. And the first thing he introduced my mom to was a McDonald's hamburger. And my mom had never had beef in her life, meat in her life for that matter, because in India they were vegetarian. And so it was like a big shock to her system. And she quickly realized that that wasn't the way for her. And so she just started to cook all of her old Indian staples like every single day. But the problem is my older brother, who was very influenced by his surroundings. And then I was very influenced by him. He hated Indian food growing up. And so he thought it was gross and it looked funny and it smelled funny, and was like, I want to eat what everybody else is eating at school. So I was like, okay, well, I need to eat everything that everybody's eating at school too. And my mom didn't have those like old school from scratch recipes ready. So she relied on Betty Crocker and Hamburger Helper and the Salisbury steak that you put in the microwave. And so, and then my dad, who loved the fact that fast food was so cheap and free sometimes, like I just remember coloring to get free breakfast on Father's Day and Mother's Day at McDonald's, like just the fact that it was so cheap, he loved getting it for us. And they knew nothing about nutrition. They had no idea about the ingredients in this food and what it could do to your body. And me and my brother had a lot of health issues growing up. We had eczema, we had asthma. We were always in and out of the doctor's office, sick all the time on, like, I would say a course of antibiotics 4 or 5 or 6 times a year for us. Wow. Doses of steroids just to control our allergies and our eczema and our asthma. I mean, I was on 3 different medications just to control my asthma.
And your appendix ruptured, right?
Yes, that happened too later in my 20s, right? My early 20s. And it was, I was on 9 prescription drugs at one point in my life. And it wasn't until my appendix came out that I started to look into what I was actually eating. And back then they told you, you don't need your appendix. It's just an extra organ, why would God give you this organ, right? Like, gosh, you just don't need it, right? Yeah. But there is a purpose for everything in your body. And actually an appendix populates your gut with good bacteria. And when you're eating a lot of high inflammatory foods like fast food and chemicals that were invented to just improve the bottom line of the food industry and not improve your health, it starts to impact your body negatively. And that's what happened to me. And so my appendix became inflamed. I had to get it removed. And and it just didn't seem right that I would have to go through this like serious surgery at such a young age. And so I started to research everything that I was eating, why I was eating it. I started to go on these fad diets to try to lose the weight that I had gained that led me into the hospital. And, one of the first diets that I encountered was Weight Watchers. And it was like, this point system. And it just made sense because I could eat anything I wanted as long as I followed the points. And I just remember sitting next to my cube mate, and she, my boss would always have these big containers of candy. And one day she had this big container of red vines. And she said to me, she goes, "Bonnie, red vines are only 1 point. Go eat them." And she didn't even bother to look at the ingredients.
No.
Well, you look at the ingredients in red vines. Now they've made a natural version because I've told this story so many times. They make a natural version now, and they actually sent me an email and were like, "Bonnie, you'd be so happy we're making a natural version now." But like they had, all these artificial flavors and artificial dyes in it, and it's made with corn syrup, all of this stuff. And it's not stuff that you would want to put in your body, especially when you're on a diet or wanting to feel better, right? So, that kind of diet culture, I found out really quickly wasn't going to work long term. And when I eventually found out the truth about my food, looking into actual ingredients and reading what these ingredients were and why they were created and why they're put into food, then I made a decision. I didn't want to be part of that experiment anymore. And I started to eat real food, real whole food that I would get from the farmer's market or the grocery store. And I would make my food myself. I stopped outsourcing my food to the fast food corporations and restaurants and started to take back that control. And when I did that, everything changed. I went off all 9 prescription drugs. I started to feel better than I've ever felt before. I started to be able to like stay the same weight and not gain any weight, not lose any weight, like just be
maintain it.
Exactly where I'm supposed to be, for my body type. And it was just this beautiful thing. And everybody around me just couldn't believe the transformation and the changes. And when they looked at me, they just were like, "What are you doing? I want a piece of that." I was like the first one to teach my friends about, green juicing and green smoothies and like all of that kind of stuff. And I happened to find this information out just by doing old school research. And so I just checked out these giant books on nutrition and these alternative guides on health. And I realized there's like this whole nother realm out there of people, of society that's kind of like saying like no to this food system and choosing something themselves. And when I said no to the current food system and said yes to myself, that's when everything started to change. That's when I started my blog, foodbabe.com.
Yep.
And I started it just for fun. And it wasn't until I started writing about the ways that I had been duped that the food industry started to pay attention. And one of the first companies that I wrote about was Chipotle. And Chipotle,
I don't even know that one. I always thought you were going to say Chick-fil-A. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about Chipotle.
Yes. So back a long time ago when Chipotle was getting really popular, everybody was like, "Oh, it's the healthy Mexican," right?
Yeah.
And they had this tagline, "Food with integrity." It was beautiful. And when I called them or emailed them and asked for the ingredients in their food, they wouldn't tell you. I'm like, "Hey, wait a minute. You're saying your food's with integrity, but you're not telling me what's in it. Like, this is crazy, right?" So then I just decided, I'm going to go put my boots on and I'm going to go march down the street to the local Chipotle and I'm going to see what I can find out. And I convinced one of the managers behind the scenes to show me the packages and the boxes of stuff that they were getting shipped there and the ingredients in those products. And so I took pictures. I talked about it on my blog and the blog went viral. A petition was started. And then the marketing director for Chipotle calls me, Chris Arnold, and is like, "Bonnie, stand down." And I'm like, "Well, hey, like you say your food's with integrity, but I'm finding out that you're using GMOs, you're using all of these inflammatory oils, there's all of these preservatives in your food, stuff that other fast food chains use too. So like what makes yours better?" And a lot of it was better, but a lot of it wasn't too. So they decided, which was the coolest thing ever, they decided not only to release their ingredients and tell us what's in their food, but they decided to be the first fast food chain to go GMO free, besides their Coca-Cola products that they still sell, which is just bullshit. But anyway,
Bonnie, how satisfying.
it was amazing, right? It was amazing. And, this was all while I was still working in the corporate world,
Yeah.
like being a banking consultant.
Yeah.
And so I figured out how to actually be the unconventional person in my office environment and traveling on the road, to a different office in different locations and things like that, taking my food with me, packing it up, taking it in a to-go cooler, doing all of that so that I could stay, somewhat regimented about being as close to real food as possible. Because every time you go out to eat, you're being exposed to all sorts of chemicals that you normally wouldn't cook with at home. That is one of the things that got me into the situation that I was in, where I felt like a zombie most of my life. I literally felt like half my brain was working. And I think because of good genes and genetics, I got through school okay. But like, imagine if my brain was actually 100% on like it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that I've been able to change the food industry is because of my health. It's because
Yeah.
I've been taking care of myself and my brain's actually working.
Yeah. You were eating dead foods. Talk about that book that kind of changed everything for you.
Yeah, so there's this book called Conscious Eating by Gabriel Cousens, and it's a really hardcore nutritional book. There's this concept in there that just, hit my head so hard. Like it just was like, oh, this is exactly what's been happening most of my life, that the majority of foods that are in the middle of the grocery store, actually 80 to 90% of the grocery store foods are dead. They're dead packaged processed foods. They're like literally dead food that's preserved with chemicals to sit on a shelf. It's like, and that's how I felt for most of my life, dead.
Exactly. No, it paints a picture. Exactly. You're like that. You're a zombie because you're not fully awake and alive. And you probably don't know what it feels to feel that way because you don't have anything to compare it to, because your whole life you felt like that. And you're
right.
like,
And I
this is my
felt,
normal.
Erin, the reason I still do what I do after 12 years of doing this is because of the fact that there's so many people I see today that are walking around like I used to walk around, and I want them to wake up. Like I want them to
100%.
wake up so bad. And the only way I know how to like get people to wake up is to teach them about ingredients and share what I've learned about ingredients and share my story about what I'm doing. And now that I have children, which you do too, which is, to become a mom has strengthened my why so much, because I am constantly inundated with these situations where I have to explain to my 6-year-old what's going on with the food system and why this certain food is something that I wouldn't purchase and wouldn't buy and why I wouldn't eat it. I have a mission to teach moms and other parents, like I want to teach them in a way that like they understand what a important responsibility they have right now, because we're in a situation where there's so much information available on the internet, and we are in an awareness factor where there's organic food everywhere now. It's available at Walmart and at Costco, and like the really good brands are exploding all over the place. And we're in a situation where we have the opportunity now that we can actually teach our children the truth about the food industry and the ingredients, and they can literally be like the missionaries that go on and create the world that we want to live in. And whereas like I didn't have that opportunity as a child, like my parents didn't know anything, they didn't know jack squat about any nutrition or even had the knowledge to teach me or like anything. I mean, my mom knew that Cheetos were bad for you, right? Like you probably shouldn't eat Cheetos for dinner. Cause I remember I was eating them one day at dinner time and she said something like, those are going to make you fat, or she said something awful about them. And
it's always
like,
about
I'm
like the
never
weight
eating
gain,
Cheetos
not the
again.
ingredients. Yeah. That's how I grew up. It was like, oh, that'll make you fat, but not what like the poison that you're feeding yourself.
Right. And like, you don't have to worry about weight and how you look anymore if you just eat the right nutrition. And so that's what's so beautiful about this way of life. And I'm watching these debates happen between like the vegans and the meat eaters and the da-da-da-da. And they say, I feel better and I feel better too doing this way. And this is the right way. And that's the right way. Well, you both of them pretty much are removing all of processed foods, right? And so like, of course, both camps are going to feel great. And of course,
Yeah.
that's their reality and their truth. Right. And that's why I believe that, like, if you just learn about ingredients and real food and you eat the majority of your diet as real food, everything else will work out. Like, eventually you can make little tweaks in what works for your body and what you feel better on, and you can get real granular, but it's really as simple as just real food.
I'm just thinking of what are the like hindrances to eating real food, and the people that you're picturing around that are walking around like zombies, their budget. It's like you said, fast food is just, obviously it's quicker, it's convenient, it's cheaper. Moms, like a lot of moms listen to the show, and I'm just going to be honest, my kids eat Eggo pancakes and waffles in the morning. And I'm always so proud of them because they can get up and do it themselves. It's easier. It's quicker. It doesn't have all the prep. And I hear you and what you're saying. And I want like every woman to feel, because I eat really good. I need to focus more on my kids. Like if they push back on me, I'm kind of just like, it's fine. And it's not horrible, but I don't even know what I'm looking at to even say it's not horrible. Like
Okay,
like
I gotta fix your Eggo waffle pancake situation.
it's white flour, and it's basically sugar. Correct?
Okay, I got to fix it right now.
Please fix
They
it.
can still do it themselves, but I'm going to tell you what to do instead.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why you're here. Everyone get a pen.
So I want you to, I don't know if you have Food Babe Kitchen, my first book. My second book, Food Babe Family, is about to come out.
I know.
And it's got a ton of pancake and waffle recipes because kids love them, right? And you take any of those recipes and you batch make them on a Sunday when you have the time, right? When your kids are there, they can help you too, because they love making waffles and pancakes. Like
They do.
My kids love stirring crap, like making a big powder, ridiculous flour mess in the, whatever. It's Sunday. You'll be able to clean it up, hopefully. So, make a big batch, freeze them. And the way I freeze them is I take a little piece of parchment paper and I just put it between each pancake or each waffle, right? And I stick them in the freezer. They still can take them out, pop them in the toaster, do the whole thing, right? It's just not Eggo, right?
That's
it's
fair.
not Eggo. It's not factory made with white flour, white sugar, and probably some natural flavors that trick their brain into remembering that flavor. So that's the only Eggo waffle they'll ever want to eat, right? It's like their entire brain is getting hijacked by that flavor, whereas they're not going to get hijacked if you make it from scratch and make it at home. And there's some great mixes out there too. If you don't even want to make the flour and the baking soda and the baking powder and like do that thing, there's some great mixes out there that you can still make stuff from scratch that I use. Arrowwood makes a great buttermilk pancake mix. Buckwheat, Arrowwood makes a buckwheat one, which is like half buckwheat, half whole wheat. So you don't even taste the buckwheat yet. It's not as white, so the kids are going to notice that. But like, I always like mash a banana in there to make it a little sweeter, and sometimes I add an egg if it doesn't have the egg in the pancake recipe. I don't know, something about eggs and pancakes. I think they taste really good. And so like, and it adds the protein. So it's like, you can like make it your own, right?
Yes.
And you can experiment, but like make a big batch of that and have that in your freezer versus the Eggo.
100%. Yeah. Cause then it's not the ease of like in the convenience that they can do it themselves. They can still do it themselves, but it just takes some effort on my part. I feel obligated to share the only healthy recipe that I have that is so easy. And we have it at least 2 times a week, banana pancakes. And my kids are like, oh my gosh, pancakes. The ingredients are banana and egg. And that is it.
Gosh.
You do 2 eggs to 1 banana and you whisk it until it's frothy. And what I used to do was pour it on the pan and just flip them. So that takes a little bit longer. Obviously, you're waiting for it to bubble. What I do now is I call it banana cake. Same recipe, banana and eggs, wait till it's frothy. And I bake it in a round pan for 30 minutes. So I can go and get shit done for 30 minutes. And then I take a pizza cutter and give them just like triangles. And they think it is the biggest treat. And it is eggs and bananas. There is nothing else added. It's actually delicious. I found it on like a fitness website for like a quick before workout or after workout, but my kids love it. They eat it. It's healthy. There's 2 ingredients and they feel like it's a treat. So I'm like, does anybody want banana cake? And they're like, yeah, eggs and bananas.
You can freeze that too, right?
I can freeze that. Totally.
Be like, go warm yourself up some banana cake.
Exactly. That's what we need, Food Babe family. I know it comes out in October. More than 100 recipes and foolproof strategies to help your kids fall in love with real food. And I've learned just from listening to you, they're used to the white flour and that's all they know. And because I mean, we do, is Dave's Killer Bread all right? We do
Yeah,
Dave's.
well, I love it. You know,
Me too.
some people, if you want to be like completely granular and nitty gritty on it, like they
Okay.
use canola oil, but like it's one, like if you're doing really well at home and you buying Dave's Killer Bed, go for it, right?
Well, they'll
Go
eat
for
it.
it.
It's got a
Yeah.
little bit of a sweetness to it. The one that
Yeah,
I've
it's
read in the
got
yellow
sugar in
package,
it. Yeah.
but they'll eat that because it's a little bit sweet versus just a white. But you're right. If you don't introduce them to enough things earlier on, they just have a taste for that and they're not going to open up to it. You told your daughter when she was what, 2, that candy bars were yucky.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was ingrained that she's like, no, yucky. And now I heard you on a podcast telling a story about when the ice cream truck came to her school and she made a decision for herself.
We got an email from the headmaster at school, and the email was, "Hey, we're going to have ice cream day on one of the last days of school, and we just want to let you guys know." And so, like 2 nanoseconds, I'm replying back, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm happy to provide some popsicles, ice cream, whatever for that day. Let me know, I'm on it." And she writes back immediately and she goes, "No, we got it covered." And, fast forward to ice cream day, I'm dropping off Harley at school, and the headmaster always greets us when we drop off our kids. And I rolled down the window and I was like, "So what do you guys have planned today? What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, the ice cream truck's coming." And I'm like, "Oh," so when my daughter got home from school that day, I just couldn't wait, to hear what she had to say. And she just was so excited. And she was like, she ran to me and she goes, "Mom, I picked the best option. I just want to let you know." I go, "Well, what do you mean by the best option?" And she says, "Well, there were a lot of like really bright colored options and popsicles and this like SpongeBob looking thing and like all of this, but I chose the ice cream sandwich." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Was it good?" She's like, "It was so good, but I just want you to know, out of all the options, I think I chose the best one because it didn't have artificial dyes." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm just really happy to hear that you thought about it. That's awesome." And I tried to like contain my emotion, but like
You did a
after she was
cartwheel.
done, yeah, I did a cartwheel in my head. And so I try to contain it because I just don't want her to like, I want her to be a kid and I want her to be like
Yes.
normal, and I don't want her to like, like obsess about ingredients or food or anything like that. I want her to just make the best decisions for her body. And so like immediately I go and do something crazy, which is I go to the internet and I Google what's in a typical ice cream sandwich.
Mhm.
And I am horrified. And I'm like so upset to find out that a typical ice cream sandwich has like 2 or 3 different color dyes because they're adding a dye to the chocolate layer on the outside, caramel coloring level 4, which is considered a carcinogen. They're using and to flavor, to dye the ice cream inside is like titanium dioxide, an ingredient that they're banning in Europe. And it's like, I'm just like losing my mind. Like even someone who's like on the outside aesthetics, like a 6-year-old trying to critically think about the best decision cannot make a good decision because that's how
Yes.
screwed up
Yeah.
the food system
Let it
is.
out.
And it's just like, it just made me so mad. And of course, I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth.
Yeah.
Eventually, I will tell her if we're in the situation again where she tries to choose that. I might say, "Hey, guess what? I found out, blah, blah, blah," and give her the information and still let her make the decision. But, one of the things is while our kids are young, we really have the opportunity to control a lot, right? We can control what we bring in the house. We can control what we buy. We can control when snack time is, what's for dinner. We control a lot. And there's a lot of stuff we don't control too, right? When they go to school, when they go to a friend's house, when they're in a situation, they're at camp, whatever, right? I'll give you another example of, I enroll her in cooking camp this summer, and it's like amazing. And it's so much fun. And they're making sushi and like sauce from scratch and pasta from scratch, like stuff that I've never even done before in my life. Like, and I'm the food babe.
And you're the food babe.
Yeah. They're making everything, right? And it's like, it's incredible. And, they send out an email and they're like, "Hey, we're going to have a snack time too during the day." And I'm thinking they're going to like cut up some ingredient or have something that they're making as part of the snack.
Yeah.
No, they serve goldfish. And I'm like, you're in a cooking class, a cooking camp, and you're still serving goldfish to the kids. And this is what's wrong with where we are as a society, where we think goldfish is a suitable snack for a camper and cooking class.
And they have the resources right there. It's the convenience.
Yes.
And it's just,
Yeah.
it's just like
let's practice our knife skills. Let's cut an apple, like let's do something like that instead.
As you're talking, two things are coming up. One is like specific to me that I'll get into next, but do you ever wonder if, and I know you address this in Food Babe Family that comes out in October, but if they're, I don't want to say controlled, but they have things a very certain way at home that when they go to a birthday party or when they go, I don't know, to the movies, that they're going to rebel because they're not allowed to have it. And it makes it almost more enticing. And I ask this because I dealt with a lot of eating disorders, and bad, in quotes, food was up on a pedestal. Like, no, like, oh my gosh, I can't have it. I can't have it. And it made me want it more. It made it more tempting and enticing. Do you wonder, or do you ever worry about making them not like have it off limits at home, making that more enticing to them when they're not with you?
I don't, because we don't have this like no dessert rule, or we don't have this like no treat rule. You can have any kind of treat as long as it has good ingredients. And so she's getting her sugar fix, right? She's eating the ice cream sandwiches that I buy that are organic at home, or she's having her chocolate in the middle of the day, because I won't give it to her at night because she'll be up all night.
Totally.
But
she doesn't feel deprived.
She's having her lollipop that's a Yum Earth lollipop or whatever, right? She's having that available to her, and she knows that if we're in a situation where there's like an artificially dyed product available at a somewhere, that I would always be in a position to say that she can have a treat later that's like healthier or whatever. And she's always been really positive about that, and it's just been her way of life. And I think where that rebellion may come in is probably later in life, maybe when she's a teenager. I could see that happening possibly, but because I've been accepting of desserts, because I have a sweet tooth. And so, if she sees me having a dessert, I don't want to be a hypocrite and be like, you can't have that, right? Or try to lie to her and say, oh, that's an adult dessert or whatever, right?
Even you allowing it for yourself and not for her, you're modeling it. I speak, and a lot of it is on girl moms and what you're modeling for your kid. And like I said, I dealt with bulimia, anorexia, depression for at least a decade. And I love my mom. I'm not blaming my mom, because eating disorders are like, there's a genetic component, but some of it is environment. And if you are genetically predisposed to an eating disorder and you have a mom that's always on a scale, when you were talking about Weight Watchers, I know that my mom could eat 13 Milk Duds because that was enough points for her day. And instead of getting nutrients, she would eat 13 Milk Duds because the points. And I watched that, and she would always tell me, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And you're so fit, but it's not what you're saying to them. It's what you're saying to yourself, because you're modeling it. And then she'd be on the scale like, I got to lose 10 pounds. And just looking back on it now, and after a lot of therapy, I see what that kind of conditioned me to be. And I do want my kids to eat organic and super healthy, but specifically in my situation and my past, I don't want to give them any noise about you can only eat this way and any kind of food rules, because I was so regimented and depressed and like just sad living that way. And I equated everything about my life with like how I looked and how thin I was. And I don't want to be so regimented with food that my daughter specifically, who I am modeling what a woman should be, to go down that path. So it's like when she asked for like a second, I know cereal is not good, but not sugary cereal, but like if she's eating cereal and she wants another bowl of cereal, like I'm always like, do you want to listen to your tummy, or how does that make you feel after you eat it? And I'm so cognizant of the words I'm using, and I don't ever want her to go down that road. So if I make it too regimented at home about what foods are okay and not okay, I just don't want her to struggle like I did. So I'm so worried about, like, there's one way they could rebel against it and eat bad, or she could really listen to me and be so, like you said, you want your daughter to be a kid and not be at school like this has this, and like writing. I used to write down the calorie count of everything, and I will not have that happen to her. So sometimes I let her slide nutritionally because I don't want her to be so regimented that she develops an eating disorder.
Eating disorders are very complex. It's a very complex thing. But what I've found is when you're eating real food and you allow your kids to eat as much real food as they want, their bodies regulate themselves. And so there's not a lot of rules that you have to have.
True.
Because they're eating real food.
Okay.
And so if they want to eat the whole stick of butter, go for it. It's their bodies are going to tell them when to stop. No, seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids have done that, right? I mean, they eat a whole stick of butter sometimes.
Okay.
Maybe not a whole, maybe like a half. But yeah, I mean, and they're not going to get, there's no sickness going to happen from that. So
Okay.
the sickness comes in when they're eating packaged processed foods with chemicals that are things that our bodies have not evolved to handle. And, we're in part of this large experiment over the last 50 years is, these chemicals are only like 50 years old. And our food system has been inundated with them, over 10,000 of them. And these are things that our bodies weren't supposed to consume. And that's why I believe that we're seeing so much high rates of disease in the human population, especially in America, because these chemicals all have consequences to them. They don't have a nutritional purpose. So if they have a purpose, like make sure that they don't harm the body, but a lot of times they do, which is really scary.
And you mentioned your kids and how they eat. Can you give me just a sample day of like what
Sure.
you make them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So this morning, let's talk about breakfast.
Yes.
So,
steel cut oats. I already know this one.
Yeah. So it's funny too. Oats are getting like this. Anyways, it's hilarious. There's this whole like faction online right now that are coming against oats as not being healthy.
Can I ask, and I think I heard it from you, that non-organic oats are sprayed with Roundup?
Yes. So if you're eating non-organic oats that are
Quaker?
instant, yes, Quaker instant non-organic oats is probably not the best breakfast for you because it's going to have high levels of glyphosate, but also the instant variety of oats gets processed by the body very quickly. And so it can raise your blood sugar. Instead, what I do is I buy organic sprouted steel cut oats. And I love this brand from 1 Degree. And I put it in my slow cooker overnight. It takes 30 seconds. And I have the creamiest, delicious oatmeal in the morning, just oatmeal and water. And then I top it off with fresh ground flaxseed, and I'll grind the flaxseed myself, put it in a jar and stick it in the fridge for a week. And I'll just grind it every week like that, because over time, when you start off with, like, if you were to buy ground flaxseed at the store, once you open that bag, it goes rancid very quickly because it's been ground for a long time. So you want to grind it yourself. You could top it with chia seeds, some almond butter, some other kind of fat, walnuts, whatever, fruit. And my kids love that. And I just like having something ready first thing in the morning when they wake up, because a lot of times they wake up and they're just like, I need to eat. And so
then they get the Eggo waffles because it's fast.
Right, exactly. Right. But then we also make pancakes. Like this morning, we made those pancakes from Arrowwood Mills or whatever. Okay. And, I just whipped them up real quick, put the banana and the egg in there. And I use coconut milk, like coconut milk out of a can, for additional fat. And they love those things. And my daughter, she's been sitting at my desk lately while I'm doing Instagram and like work. And so she sees all these videos. And so somebody was making pancakes and they were topping them off with almond butter and they put sprinkles on them. And she's like, Mom, can we please make those? So we did that this morning. She did the almond butter and she took natural sprinkles and put a couple on top. And I was like, go for it. And then we made some chicken sausages. We love this company called Belinsky's. It's an organic brand. They don't use a casing, which
love that.
I don't love casing. I feel like it's kind of tough, right? Yes. But they have this chicken sausage that's sage flavor. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. My kids love it. They're getting that protein in the morning. They're getting the fruit from the oatmeal and the soluble fiber from the oatmeal. The flax seeds, they're getting omega-3 fatty acids. The pancakes, they're getting pancakes and a little bit of egg, banana, and that flour. What do they
drink at breakfast? Milk?
Water. Yeah.
Organic milk?
My little baby's still breastfeeding. So he has breast milk, but first thing in the morning when he wakes up, but water. Yeah. They both drink water pretty much all day.
What about organic? So my kids drink water except for at breakfast. They have a cup of organic 2% milk in the morning with breakfast and with dinner, and then water. They don't drink sodas or juice or anything, but what is milk, organic milk? Is there something that I'm missing?
I would go full fat and raw if you could with your milk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because the fat is really high in vitamin A. Okay. And that actually is so beneficial to your brain, especially kids' development brains. and the full fat is going to be really beneficial to them. So
Is that
I
when
would,
I'm sorry, when they say DHA, like added, I don't like things that are added, but it's like the DHA for brain health. They have it like on the Horizon Organic boxes.
well, it should have some DHA in it if you're doing grass fed anyway. So I don't think you need
Okay.
additional. So like,
Okay,
just
perfect.
make sure you're buying grass fed milk. If
Yep.
it's raw, even better.
Okay.
I would go whole milk, and I
Great.
don't think they need to have it 2 times a day unless they
Okay.
like it. I don't think they
They
need
do
to.
like it. They like
My
milk.
kids don't drink any milk. They get all of their protein and fat from other things. So
Okay.
my daughters never drink any cow's milk ever. So
Okay.
unless it's an ice cream.
Unless it's cool with an ice cream sandwich.
Yeah.
You said you have another trick for breakfast.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love, well, not just for breakfast, but like I love to do with my cooking is I like to use a variety of flours all the time. Like sometimes I will use white flour, but sometimes I'll use almond flour, or sometimes I'll use buckwheat flour mixed with spelt flour. And I like to like vary it up. So they're not always having one type of flour. They're getting different nutrients. They're getting exposed to different flavors. They're getting different things. And so not all the time are they going to get like a white flour muffin. Their muffin might be made with oat flour one day, so it's every single time I try to like make it different. And you'll find that in my recipes, like in Food Babe Kitchen and Food Babe Family that's coming out. You'll see that I'm using different flours a lot of times and mixtures of flours so that it's different. And the child's getting different nutrition from those flours.
Do they question it? Are they like, Mom,
They
this doesn't
don't.
taste
Well, sometimes. So my 6-year-old is getting smarter. She's getting smarter in that when we go to, on vacation or something and they make pancakes. So in Italy, we had like breakfast included with our stay. So I was like, okay, this is great. We're going to have breakfast at this buffet every day. And they would make pancakes for the kids. Well, every day she was like so excited about these pancakes, like way more excited than I've like ever seen her about pancakes. So I'm like, okay, what's going on with these pancakes? Well, I like eat one bite of these pancakes and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is cake. Like it was straight up cake. There was no pan about it, right? It was cake. And I was like, no wonder she's freaking out about these pancakes, right? And so she's like, oh, these are so much better than the ones at home. Well, of course they are, It's funny. Italians have this way of making everything sweeter, but like, they usually tend to use like more natural ingredients, but like even their croissants, they had sprinkled powdered sugar on top. And I'm like, come on, like it's a croissant. You don't need powdered sugar on top. But anyway, so she is getting smarter about that, but that's only when we eat out. So, but when she's in the routine of eating at home, she's good.
Now that she's back in school, what's in her lunchbox?
Okay. So she loves having some type of roasted vegetables. And I love that too, which is just so cool. And so what I'll do, because roasted vegetables don't get as slimy and gross as like a steamed vegetable or something like that, what I'll do is I'll roast them first thing in the morning and I throw them in her lunchbox. And by the time she eats them, they're fine and she loves them. So I'll roast broccoli, cauliflower, whatever, Brussels sprouts, she will eat those, right? So that's like one of her sides. And then I usually make a huge pot of tolerant pasta, which is a lentil pasta. It's like one ingredient, red lentil pasta with some tomato sauce. And then I'll use ground turkey meat in there too. And sometimes I'll even puree additional vegetables in the sauce just to have extra. And she doesn't know. She eats so many vegetables on her own that I don't have to do that to her. I did have to do that at one point to my son, but he's back on the train now. So it took some, convincing, but yeah, so she will eat that. So I'll put that in a thermos. I'll warm it up in the morning and put it in a thermos. And then I always put like some kind of like really fun thing to eat as well, like dried fruit or, fresh fruit or something like that. And they're not allowed to have any kind of cookie, sweet, chocolate candy, nothing. It's like a rule at the school, which is, I love it. So there's no debate about like what goes in that little middle compartment. That's like, the candy compartment. So there's no debate about that, which is nice. So, and then when she gets home, she knows at 3:00 she can have like a little treat.
What is that treat?
So usually I'll make some kind of fruit plate. We'll have maybe some beet chips. I love these like rhythm dried beet chips. And then, maybe cheese and crackers or something like that. And then she'll
Okay.
have like a piece of chocolate or something. Like she has this candy section in her pantry that she organizes herself.
Okay.
And, the funny thing is I had that same candy, shelf, but I hid it from my parents when I was little. And so I
See.
love the fact that she does it like where we can see it.
Yeah.
She organizes like any kind of candy she gets from someone, or if we get something on vacation or whatever, she takes it and puts it in that section, and she just, decides when she wants to eat it. And yeah, so
What do you order her at a restaurant? You go out to dinner. What is she getting?
usually I always order a fish, some kind of fish, and then whatever vegetables they have.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll probably, if we're going out to a restaurant, it's because we don't normally eat out like a lot. So like when
Yeah.
we're home, when we're traveling, obviously we do a lot, but when we're home, we usually don't eat out a lot. So sometimes we'll splurge and get like French fries, and that'll be like her one like big treat kind of thing, and then usually like the French fries, fish, and vegetables. Yeah, that's like a normal thing we would
Totally.
order.
Because like they're always like they have buttered noodles and I see people just eat buttered noodles every single time their kids go out to eat
Yeah,
because like
yeah.
there's
So
no
so
nutrition.
that's one thing that I did from the very start is I let her eat what we were eating,
Yeah.
so that she wouldn't be like, well, am I getting chicken nuggets or pizza today or
Yes.
whatever, like
That's
after the kids
amazing.
menu, right? Where in Europe, it was really great because the kids menu was amazing. They had like mini filet mignon and mini
Oh my
fish,
God.
like, all sorts of things, right? And then in Switzerland, they had like fancy chicken nuggets called schnitzel. And like, it's funny because I was like,
Fancy.
now that I'm back, I'm just going to call chicken nuggets schnitzel.
Yeah.
I can even
Schnitzel.
say it right now.
Call it
Schnitzel.
whatever you want. You're the
Yeah,
food
yeah,
babe.
but it is. It's like, pounded chicken
Yeah.
fried, right? It's just thinner, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. But
It's
anyway, so
different. It's
she
the
loved it.
novelty.
We
Yeah.
tried it there. She's like, "This is awesome, Mom." I was like, "Yeah, I know, because it's
Now we have it
fried."
at home. So
Yeah.
what if you didn't do that for somebody that maybe didn't start letting the kids eat what they were eating and have very picky eaters? I know you have tips in your book. Can you give me one? How do you deal with a picky eater? Like, how do you bring them on back on the train? Like you said, my son is off the
Yeah.
train. He's nowhere near the train.
Yeah.
How do I get him on the train?
So this is funny. So like my son would eat all the vegetables I would cook for him and like everything I would cook. But as soon as we would go on vacation and somebody else would cook the food, he wouldn't touch it. And
Oh,
I talked to my pediatrician about this and I was like, what is the deal? And she goes, Bonnie, you are stronger than Squishy. We have a nickname for my my son because he just grew up really fast, Squishy. And she goes, you are stronger than Squishy. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, he is smarter than you. He's trying to, flex, and you need to be
yeah.
smarter than him. And I was like, really? I was like, it doesn't have anything to do with the way it's cooked or it tastes different. Da, da, da. She's like, no, you need to lay down the law. You're going to eat this and that's it. And you
Or go to
can't
bed.
be available with the other things that he's going to eat. You can't have those available. You have to be stern. And she was right. She was
Oh.
100% right. So the next vacation we took, I used that approach and it worked. He ate every single vegetable.
And if he didn't, it's like that's all you get. There's no
Yeah, I'm
alternative.
like, you're not going to get any pizza or French fries or this other bread that's coming, in a minute for all of us, unless you eat this. And that was it.
I interviewed a mom of 10, if you can believe it. And I was like, I'm like, how do you do all the things? And she's like, I said, what does dinner look like? And she's like, we do this whole thing and pasta. And it's like, obviously family style.
Is her
and they all
name
come-
Jordan?
her name is Jane.
Jane. Okay. Okay. I didn't know. Okay. I
Busy,
just know.
10 busy bees, I think is her
Oh my
Instagram
gosh.
handle.
Oh my gosh.
Hi,
Okay.
Jane.
10 kids. Wow.
10 kids. And I said, well, what if somebody doesn't eat it? She says, I always offer a no thank you cereal. So you can eat this or you can have a no thank you cereal. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, my daughter will have no thank you cereal every single night. If she has that option, it's the no thank you cereal. I can't give her the option, but it's like, eat it. That's what's for dinner. And sometimes like, she's actually gotten really good about it. My son is pickier. He'll be like, great, I'm done. And I'm like, if you're done, that's it. That's dinner. He'll go to bed. He's like, fine. He won't eat. And then I'm like, well, that one's supposed to work like that. Like I'd come back and eat it. He will just go to bed and not, he's so picky. I need your book. I know it comes out in October, but I need to get him just interested. And then, like you said, they go to school and our school doesn't have that rule. And everybody else has like Lunchables and things. And then he feels like he sees what they have and then he sees what he has and he doesn't want that.
Yeah. And I
So I
think a
can't keep
lot
them in
of
a bubble.
right. So yeah, there's a lot, one of the things that you can kind of start to change their interest about food is to try to give them more control. So taking them to the grocery store, letting them pick the vegetable or the fruit that you're going to have that day or week or whatever, letting them have more control. And I think at that age it is about control.
Yeah.
And so like if you can involve him more of like, hey, like should we use in these pancakes today, should we use this flour or this flour? What would you like to use? And like, this red sprinkle or blue sprinkle or whatever, right?
True.
Whatever you can do to get him more engaged and interested in that product ahead of time, I think can help. And
It's so true.
with with vegetables, the thing is there's a specific palate for vegetables. And one of the things that I did with my kids very early on was I introduced them to all the vegetables first before I
Yeah.
even did fruits so that they wouldn't have just the sweet taste in their brain, right?
Yeah.
But that brain can be quickly rewired if you get off track. If you start going on vacation and they're having sweet things all the time or whatever, like it can really fall apart quickly. So I think the same is true that you can put the train back on and you can get them accustomed to vegetables, but you just got to learn how to cook them. I want people to know that like you can cook it in a tasty, delicious way and
Yes.
they're gonna love it and eat it.
Yes.
Always serve vegetables first. So there's there's a health reason for this, which is when you coat your digestive system with vegetables first, the fiber, the blood sugar response is much lower. So there's an actual health reason for this, but also there's a reason from the fact of you're getting the nutrition in the body first, then they have the protein, then they have the starch, and you serve it in that way. And I've always done that from the very beginning, where like the first course we all eat as a family are the vegetables. And a lot of times my husband complains about this because he's like, I want to have the cabbage with my salmon and my rice and I want to mix it all up.
That's
and
me. I'm a pairing. I like it all. Yes.
like,
I'm
and
him.
that's fine. You can wait to eat then, but we're going to eat the vegetables first, especially while my 2-year-old's too, right?
Oh my
Now that
gosh.
my daughter's older, it doesn't matter anymore. Like she'll always just eat the vegetables first on her plate because she's accustomed to that. Right.
Yes.
But with my 2-year-old, we're still teaching him that like you need to eat your vegetables. Like it's very important to have this variety of vegetables in your diet.
I never thought of doing courses. Like we have those places that have all the different compartments and
Yeah.
he just eats the fruit. Now it's like a light bulb. He goes to the fruit and I'm like, it stops filling up on the fruit because you have to eat your protein and your vegetable. And that's the last thing he eats, but it's an option.
Yeah.
So
we don't serve fruit until we serve fruit as dessert. Always.
Courses. I love
Always.
that.
Yes,
and I can make it fun like a
courses.
restaurant, your first course we're having, and they'll think it's, yes, I give them the whole thing and then it's up to them. And he never, it's always the last thing that he eats.
No, you need to have a little bit more control than that. And there's probably some dietitians and other people that are like, oh gosh, this is just, too much, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. You can think that about this way, but this really does work.
I love it. I'm adopting it. I wanted to get into branding so badly. I don't have the time. I maybe need to have you come back to do branding. Just while the last couple minutes, I wanted to just throw out just some questions I had. I know processed foods are dead foods and you should shop the perimeter. What about organic processed foods like an Annie's brand?
Well, here's the thing with Annie's. It's still a processed food. It still has more sugar than you want to consume. And it's also got most likely natural flavors. And the reason why I want to talk about this label, natural flavors that you see on ingredient labels, is because it could mean thousands of chemicals behind that one ingredient, because the FDA allows food manufacturers to use natural flavors to describe any flavoring that they're adding that comes from a quote unquote natural source. That means also made in a laboratory to create the 1 millionth best part of a taste and can contain thousands of chemicals behind that one label. And so for me, that ingredient in a product always hijacks your brain, makes something that wouldn't otherwise taste good, taste really, really good, and make you want to eat another one and another one and another one. And that's the problem with processed foods, in that we're eating more than what we should be eating. Whereas like when you eat real food, your brain automatically turns off the hunger hormone and says you're full and you're satiated and you don't have those sensory things going on in your brain all the time.
You're just making me think, when I was in my mess, like with my eating, I would get these cookies, I'm using quotes, that were like low carb, high protein, no sugar cookies, tasted like garbage. I would eat the whole container of them because I would just keep eating it and I was never like satiated. And now I say in the morning, like with my coffee, you won't love this, but sometimes I have a cookie and I don't even eat the whole thing because I'm satisfied because it's a real cookie. It's not all the like low carb, like all the stuff that they have to put in it because it's a diet cookie. I feel satiated. I feel like I have hunger cues. And before I would just
because
keep
you're getting
eating
like you're eating real butter, you're
nutrition.
eating real like
Yes.
eggs in there and like
Actual
everything, right?
real food, not dead
Yeah.
foods. Yes.
Yeah.
That is bullshit. Natural flavors. I would be like, that's going in my cart. I can't
Yeah.
believe that. So you
Yeah.
feel you want to keep eating more and you feel like you're doing good
Yeah.
because it says natural flavors. I'm so glad
Well,
you
you know,
said
I
that.
just did like a little investigation on like organic snack bars, and like I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how many of them have these natural flavors added to them. And it's one of the reasons why I created my company True Vani and the
Mhm.
bar that we created, because I wanted to use ingredients that you would find in your own kitchen. I mean, that's how the whole bar started. Like I started making these bars at my house. I hated how packaged bars tasted. I always felt like they were dry and like chalky, or they didn't taste good, or they had an aftertaste. Like I never liked them.
Yep.
And I started making these bars in my own kitchen. We eventually like went through a million iterations, and 2 years later, and we came up with the True Vani only bar. And it was just like, it tasted actually good because we're using real ingredients. We're not using any
Yes.
of these filler ingredients or other chemicals added to the food. And so anyways,
I
when
need
you eat
those.
a True Vani bar, it's like eating real food because it's like made out of dates and nuts and, you know, that kind of maple syrup. So
Where do we get those?
everywhere. Well, wait, am I allowed to say this?
Sprouts?
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't
Why not? Sprouts is going to start carrying them. Yes, I'll just say it.
Woo!
Yes, it's very exciting. So there are a lot of places, and you can use our store finder on truevani.com, or you can get them online or at Amazon, anywhere.
Amazing.
So
I
yeah.
am just so in awe, just as a mompreneur myself, like the brand that you built and to something that you're so passionate about and to see like results from it and you've made changes in society or something that you're passionate about and you get to do this as your job. Like you had this corporate job and now you get to do something you're passionate about, make a difference. And you have created, I mean, 3 books, True Vani, like a product line. It is goals. And like, I see you and I am just in awe of what you've built.
Oh,
And maybe you come back and do branding because I didn't get to any of that.
Yeah, no, I would love to come back.
The worst thing that you could be serving your kid. I mean, I'm sure it's like red 40, yellow 6, something that like you see moms and you're like, you have to stop or how dangerous this is. And it's a widely accepted food that moms are giving their kids. Is there anything that comes to mind that you're like, you stop buying this or people don't realize how harmful it is?
We talked about goldfish. I really feel strongly about goldfish.
Even Annie's, like cheddar bunnies?
Well, they still have
Okay.
ingredients in there that I wouldn't
Okay.
feed my kids all the time. There is an alternative that just came out that is amazing. Amazing. Oh my gosh. I want to shout them through the rooftops because they're so good. I had a bowl of them last night. Simple Mills just came out with this baked cheese cracker called Pop'ems.
Okay.
They freaking made this out of organic butternut squash, and they taste like a goldfish.
Simple Mills Pop'ems.
Yes.
Done.
Shocked at how good these things are. They are that good.
Approved.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
No, I would eat those. But again, this is like a snacky snack thing, right? So worst food, I would say either like a Takis. Like
I just was going to say, I saw your reel on Takis.
Yes, Takis. I didn't realize so many kids are into these things.
They're spicy.
Takis, yeah,
you wouldn't think.
They're really bad for your body.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Another one like Gatorade or any kind of like juice kind of spiked with all of these artificial ingredients, like that would be really on top of my list. I was judging one of my friends recently for letting their little kids drink Coca-Cola. I mean, I was just thinking of things that I've seen lately that I'm like, oh no, like Coke is like the worst thing ever.
And I know that. And I'm saying I don't know about ingredients, but obviously like the things that I'm like high sugar, like sodas and things like that. I'm just wondering, what am I missing? This like something that maybe is not so well known that this is awful.
Do you know those little bites?
Yes.
Those little like
yes, I
muffins?
can picture them.
Yes, those things. Everything in that aisle It's
Oh,
not even an aisle. They put it in the middle of the aisle so that everybody buys them. Like literally, they're not in their own aisle. They're in front of the milk in their own little section.
yep. And they're buy one, get one free. And there's going to be so you just stock up for your
Yeah.
pantry and you have kids over. Yes. My sister has a huge thing of little bites right now. Have her listen to this. I could talk to you for the rest of the day. Hopefully you'll come back to talk about branding, but I want to finish with your new book that's coming out in October, Food Babe Family. Tell us what it is and where we can get it.
So it comes out on October 17th, and you can
Okay.
go to foodbabe.com and get all the information there.
Okay.
Right now, we are going to give away like some amazing bonuses if you pre-order it. So if you're listening to this before October 17th
Yeah.
and you pre-order it, you're going to get some amazing bonuses. And if you listen to it after October 17th, there'll be some bonuses too, but not as good. But please get the book, because the first full half section is about what I do in all of the challenging situations when we travel, when we're at school functions, why we're at school, like what we're doing with my kids, like in this over processed world we live in. What I did when I found out my daughter's school was serving Domino's pizza every Friday, what I did to solve that problem, and like
Yeah.
so many other things that I share in there. And then it includes 100 new recipes, and there's a picture for each recipe so you know what it looks like.
Oh my
And they're
God.
easy recipes, and they don't take a long time because I don't have a long time to spend in the kitchen. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of recipes you can make in advance, and you can batch it and you can freeze it.
And True Vani, which I thought was just like product line, like your bars. It's like you have deodorant, you have a toothpaste. Where do people
Yes.
find more about
Protein
that?
powder. Yes.
Yeah.
Truvani.com, TRUVANI.com. And you can get the world's best tasting protein powder with the least amount of unnecessary chemicals. It's USDA certified organic. Same with our bar, the only bar. Check it out. We have 6 different flavors.
I'm getting the powder and I'm getting the book on October 17th. And I'm going to pre-order the book and get all the freebies that come with it. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on Squats and Margaritas. You're an icon. You are mompreneur goals. And I cannot thank you enough for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Erin. You're over the top sweet. Thank you.